Hello, we're at the DLX Boxing today. With us is Trudi Nevins, the owner of the place. Hi, True. How have you been today?
Great, thank you.
So we're here at the very specific gym that's fairly new in Las Vegas, but it's very specific. And True is going to tell us something about it, how the gym started and what's different in this gym compared to the other Las Vegas gyms.
So we've been open about 2 years now. We opened during the pandemic, which was a little challenging, but fighters will fight. So we never really slowed down. We opened in 2020 and we're going strong. The gym is doing great. We've got lots of fighters, amateurs, professionals, just people who want to just learn the sport. So we have a little bit of everything, and I couldn't be prouder of it. It's really a special place.
So what do you mean you opened during the pandemic? How did you use the time? What did you actually do?
Well, we kept it very private and as safe as possible. Of course, we had to wear masks, but we were able to keep it going. We had some fighters in here. We didn't have a lot of people. It was a new gym, so nobody really knew about it. But for the people that found out about it, it was unique because we were able to bring in fighters who had big fights coming up and who just wanted to stay fight ready. And we kept it. It was very clean. It was new, so we had that on our side. But they were able to train here, and we did what we could do. But we really. There were several fighters that really benefited from it, so they didn't have to they had a gym to go to. So what are the biggest benefits of your gym? What can fighters find here compared to the other gyms? What's better here than in the other places? I think first and foremost, I pride myself in keeping the place clean and just because it's a boxing gym doesn't mean it has to be like a filthy place. So especially these times, we try to keep it as clean as possible. It's a dirty sport, so it's challenging, but we try. The privacy. When we have fighters come in here and they need this place to themselves, we do that very well. We try to provide them with everything they need. So the only thing that they need to concentrate on is their fight camp. We've got temperature control. It happens to be, we have a 20-foot ring. We've got heavy bags, the best speed bags that I could find in the market. Everything was done without cutting costs, so that both young fighters, championship fighters, everyone really can benefit from a solid gym, a gym that they can use to become world champions, to fight, to work as hard as they can.
And what about your staff? I think I saw some very different profiles of gym trainers here. So it seems that you have like the full range of whatever I could expect. Could you tell me a bit more about it?
Yes, it is certainly an honor and a privilege to have the coaches that we have. We have coaches like Keni Adamsom, who has 28 world champions under his belt, and we have Džesi Ridom, who's also a world-class coach, Hall of Famer, as is Keni Adamsom. We have other coaches here that were amazing fighters who have now become coaches. Kofi Gentua, we have Rokijem Himenezom, Lonnie Thompson, Augie Sanchez. They're all fantastic, and they just keep getting better and better.
Hello, I'm here with Džesi Ridom, one of the best boxing trainers in the world. Hi.
Thank you very much.
So I can see that you're sitting in a very nice chair. Whose chair is it?
This chair belongs to me. Trudi awarded me with this Hall of Fame boxing chair, which is like a red carpet. I feel great.
Okay, so you're a boxing Hall of Famer then?
Yes, I am. I've had 29 world champions in my career.
Can you name some of them for us, please?
Well, one of them was Roger Mayweather, Johnny Tapia, Camacho, Frank Tate, Reggie Johnson, Calvin Grove. I can go on and on. Ding Dong Tabella, Oni Kazuki from Japan. I had Bruce Curry, who's the one that knocked Benitez down 4 times and won the WBC 140-pound championship. I had Rodolfo Gonzalez in 1970, was my first world champion. He was a lightweight champion of the world. And Jesse Burnett, who should have been world champion, who beat 4 world champions on non-title fights. When he boxed with Bob Foster, who's one of the greatest light heavyweight, the newspaper read, who's the world champion, Jesse Burnett or Bob Foster? I was real proud of him. He was a great athlete.
So you're still working with fighters?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell us a bit how it used to be before and what it's like now? What are the differences between now and then when you're training fighters?
Well, the difference is, to me, is the promoters, because they all want to get paid, so they ask for the fighters to pay for their fights, which doesn't make a great fighter. When I fought, or when any of my fighters fought, it was how they fought. They fought anybody. They didn't care who it was, you know. Like Jesse Burnett fought 4 world champions on non-title fights, beat all 4 of them. And Conte he got a draw with, but he beat him. He dropped him 3 times in London. Then you had to fight to be the best to be in boxing. Now it's how much money you have, how much people are behind you, and how they manipulate, you know. It's much different now.
You just answered my next question. How does social media affect the process of boxing training today?
Well, actually, social media is good in one way and bad in another. But to me, I think the more exposure you get and the more you show guts is the best. The fighters like Muhammad Ali lost four fights, but he was one of the greatest. You know, it wasn't about being undefeated. If Aaron Pryor or Tommy Hearns or Sugar Ray Leonard were fighting when Mayweather Jr. was fighting and Roberto Duran, it'd be a different story about being who's undefeated, believe me.
Can you describe, or rather, can you tell us who was your favorite fighter and easiest to work with? And is there someone who was particularly difficult to work with, and why?
Well, there's Bruce Curry was somebody that was schizophrenic, and if he ate sugar, he was crazier and all get out. You almost had to be as crazy as him. But when I lifted him up at Caesar's Palace when he beat Leroy Haley for the world title, I said, "You crazy son of a gun, you won the world title." I felt like you know how to work with different people, and you knew that certain people were strong in some ways and weak in others. And you had to find their weaknesses and develop that the most, not their strengths. The strengths were there. So you look for the weakness, and you develop that weakness and make it stronger. And a lot of fighters aren't afraid to fight, but they're afraid of how they're going to look. Johnny Tapia was like that. And Johnny Tapia would fight his guts out. He was a tough, and he loved people, you know. He just loved people. He loved the feeling of being a fighter. And he was a wonderful man to work with.
So, for the conclusion of our conversation, you see a lot of young trainers working alongside with you and with other experienced trainers. What advice would you give? How should they approach their job? What should they try to achieve in their work as trainers? How should they start? What should they try to achieve?
They have to be a good listener. The way I learned boxing was with Ray Arcel, Freddie Brown, all these great Foreman. Foreman was a good friend of mine. Being around those kind of people and listening to the tough things they went through, it made me a stronger trainer. You know, Ace Murata was a great cut man. He taught me how to do cuts. Jackie McCoy was a great cut man, you know. Eddie Futch was a strategist. So I picked his brain. I was in the corner. I was in the gym with all of them. And I think that's what helped me to be a better trainer. Be a good listener. Be somebody that don't think you're the best, but somebody that you want to learn from. And be there and learn every day. Fighters should do the same. When they know they have a weakness, they should try to develop that the most to make it stronger. That's the advice I would give.
Thank you. And how did you end up in DLX Boxing? How come that we can see you here?
Keni Adams trained my son. I don't think a father should ever train his son because you're too close and you're too gutty. I think you have to have more wisdom than that. So Keni, I told my son, you pick a trainer and you tell me who you want. He picked Keni Adams. Once I heard Keni Adams was at this gym, I knew this was a good gym. I knew it was somebody to be around because he's a great trainer. He did a great job with a lot of young men, and I'm the same way. I like to work with the underdog. I had a homeless kid that my son told me about. His name was Ansi Gideon. He was eating cornflakes to live. He didn't have anybody, no family here. He was in and out of foster homes, and my son told me about him. Well, I had Orlando Canizales, one of the greatest bantamweights in boxing, and Nancy was a bantamweight. And I said, Orlando, I want to hire this kid to work with you because I think he needs help. In 1 year's time, I had him #1 in the world, you know, and I'm so proud of Ansi Gideon, you know, and the way he sacrificed. Every fighter has something inside of them. They know what it is to miss a meal. They know what it is to be said you're no good. They have the strength. Johnny Tapia saw his mother killed by the Mexican mob. It made him tough as nails. He also knew what it is not to eat. And he knew what it is to be around people that had good things, and he wanted that. And he loved to have people complimenting him and saying what a great athlete he is. To me, one time I was in a park, and a young boy came up to me, he says, "You're Džesi Ridom." And I said, "Yes." He said, "I like the way you handle the corner." That meant more to me than anything in the world, to have somebody that age and know that I have that responsibility to know that he followed what I said, you know, so it made me proud.
I have the honor to speak with Keni Adams, one of the best boxing trainers in history. Hi Keni, how are you doing?
Fine, how are you?
I'm doing very good. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, I'm happy to be here.
Keni, I really don't know from where to start.
It's a blessing. I guess just boxing has afforded me to be able to do all the things in my life that I really wanted to do. And from the day that I started boxing when I was like 10 years old, and that my very start for me, you know. So as a matter of fact, which is a little small story about my boxing, is that my aunt did not want me to box at all. So what I did, I would sneak out and go 30 miles away with somebody and do some training. And so that's how I really started with boxing. You know.
You started with amateur boxing first and then turned professional. How many amateur fights?
I had about 100 amateur fights.
And what about professional fights?
No professional fights at all, none whatsoever.
So how come you decided not to turn professional? Was there anything specific?
I don't know if there really was. I went in the military and I ended up boxing there, and I stayed in the military for 30 years. And so I stayed in a long time, and so in the process of doing that, I think that's when I got involved in strictly teaching amateur too. So I got the job for the Fort Hood, the Army team. I got time for the service team. I got time for the World Military team. I got a lot of hits, and then I became assistant coach for the '84 Olympic team for the United States. And I got the head job in '88. You know.
Can you tell us just a little bit about your experience in the military? What was your position, your rank, and did you participate in any wars?
Yes, I was in the Vietnam War, and I went to jump school. I jumped out of airplanes. I also became a ranger. I was a ranger behind the enemy lines. I was working in Vietnam. That's what I did in Vietnam. I had a 5-man team that would go behind the enemy line, to pop the enemy. You know, that's our job. You know. So that's what I did in Vietnam. I went behind enemy lines and do all that.
So with this experience, with more than 100 amateur fights and 30 years in the military, you became head coach of the U.S. Olympic team, if I believe.
While I was in the military afforded me the opportunity, because I was a coach for the Army and for the armed forces for the United States. So that's how I got moved into the next job too.
And which year was the Olympic championship?
I was in the '84 and '88 Olympics. And I also worked with the 80 Olympic team too, who didn't go, as you know. So I worked with 3 different Olympic teams, 80, 84, and 88.
When did you start working with professional boxers?
Actually, I started working with professionals even when I was working as an amateur. I worked with some professional people, but my real job in the professionals started in 1988. Bob Arum and some people, actually, we met in Seoul, Korea, and they said, Kenny, I want you to bring some of the fighters that you have, and I want them to turn professional, and I want you to be our professional coach. So what I did, I helped the top-ranked gym. I set that gym up. And that's how it got started in 1988 with the top-ranked gym, and I set that all up then, and that's how I got my start. I had about 4 or 5 guys that were with me in the amateurs and in the Olympics, and that's how I started the pros.
Can you even count the number of the world champions that you have trained?
Well, I can't, but I know that I know by numbers I've got 44 that I know for sure that I've made world champions.
I think that Wikipedia said that you trained 56 world champion in total.
Maybe, I don't know. They probably know more than I know. I don't know.
I also checked online, and the rumor has it that you were a super strict trainer.
Oh yeah. I don't play no games. I'm very stern and strict. I had guys who were mess ups. They would mess up, so I'd take them all the way to, I don't know, you don't know where Pahrump is at. Pahrump is probably about 40 miles from here. I would take them there and get a room, get a hotel, and keep there and train them there. And I also take them to Mount Charleston, you know where that's at. Yes. I took them there also, and I trained them there, and I made them live there. You know, I didn't have them come around in the city at all.
So did any of them just give up? Was it too difficult for some of them?
No, they didn't give up. They would sneak away and do stuff like that, you know, and I would discipline them very strongly. I would discipline them. And that's what I did too, even in the military, even with my amateur people, what I did with them. I would get it like Fort Huachuca, Arizona. Have you heard of that? That's where I took my training at most of the time, in Fort Huachuca, because it's desert out there, plus there's mountains out there, and there's nothing much around there. And I would get a barracks. They would give me a barracks there, a big barracks with top and a bottom floor. And I'd have bed check. I had bed check every night, wake them up every morning for the run, and bed check them at night. Everything, you know, I did very tight on that.
So how do you compare the training process today to how it used to be before? Is it now easier or more difficult to train fighters?
I don't know. I guess it all depends on what the fighter wants out of it. If he truly wants to do it and he knows for his best, it's for him being the best fighter he can be, he's going to do the right thing that needs to be done. And I think that's what it allows to. But some people are just, when you got guys that are, I made crackhead champions. You know what that is, right? They smoke that crack, you know that?
Okay. Yeah.
I made those guys. I made guys like that champion.
Okay.
Some of my best fighters were crackheads. So, I mean, it's just a fact. But you really got to be strict with them, you know. So, you know, and I'm a disciplinarian, strong disciplinarian. Of course, I learned that from a guy that was an Army coach too. He was a very strong disciplinarian, and I learned that from him. Some of it, you know. So, yeah.
So is that the advice that you would give to younger trainers, and what else could you tell them, like how can they achieve the best results with their fighters? What should they do?
Well, I think the biggest thing that you want to do with teachers, you must be disciplined. They must be disciplined. At the same time, you must teach them, and you must set an example for them also. You just can't be all over the place, and they see you do that, and it's the same thing. So you got to set a good example, and that's very, very important. And I tried to set a good example, and I think I did. Like I said, it's a lot of fighters that they want to do the right thing, and so I think that's the key behind it all. You know, you got to do that. You know, you got to set the example. You got to live by it.
So, since when have you been with the DLX boxing?
For about, I think, a year and a half now. About a year and a half now, yeah. It's been a good road, yeah.
How did it happen that you came around?
It happened. I used to work for a company named Rival Boxing, and the owner seeked me out, and we were trying to help her build the gym, and pandemic hit. We shut down, and she was in the process of building the gym, and I came when there was nothing here, and then I left, came back, and I saw on social media that it was opened already, and people are training here, and I'm seeing fighters, and I was like, oh, I gotta go see her, you know, I gotta come by, and I came by, and it's I've been here ever since. I never left. They got me chained up here.
Okay, so you were involved in building up the gym. That's why the family vibe that we have here.
Yeah, well, she likes to have that family vibe here, but I wasn't involved really in the building of it. I was here in the beginning of it. You know, I like to be more like that. Yeah.
Okay. So, who are your trainees right now? With which boxers? With what kind of boxers are you working now? Or maybe you can tell us some names.
I work with a lot of amateur fighters, some professional fighters for like if people need work or mid work or anything like that, you know. But just whoever is boxing, whoever needs work, I'm willing to help out. You know, boxing is it's a learning process, and I'm a student of the game. I've been doing it since I was 8 years old, so I like to continue to learn. You know.
So you have been a professional boxer yourself, and you've been through some serious professional camps. What was the most valuable experience that you took from there and used it here?
Dedication and discipline. A lot of dedication. You have to give your life to this game 100%. 100%. If you don't, then go get another job, because if you're not giving 100%, then it's not going to work out, you know. But I've been in some really good camps, and I learned a lot, so I'm very, very fortunate.
Do you prefer working with women or men boxers?
I prefer with people that really give it 100% and want to learn. Yeah, so it doesn't matter to me. Yeah.
Okay, and how do you get along with your colleagues here in the gym? Do you have some people who might be your role models?
Yeah, actually, well, we're all like brothers and sisters here, so we all kind of like, you know, learn from each other. And but one of my role models here I learned from is a former champion contender, his name Kofi Jantua. He teaches me a lot, takes me under his wing a lot. He was a very good fighter himself in his day, and but he helps me a lot. He helps me out really good.
Could you tell me a bit more about yourself?
No.
That's fair enough. Let me rephrase that.
I'm just kidding.
Could you tell me something more about the owner of the place? What are her plans for the future? And about the past? Has she been in the ring herself, and does she plan to expand her management activities? Could you let us on her secrets?
Well, I have a 12-0 record professionally. Just kidding. Basically, you know, I've had a love for the sport. I started about 15 years ago, just getting into boxing on my own to get in shape, to just see what it was all about, and I loved it. Drank the Kool-Aid, as they say in America, and just decided to open up my own gym, and something like this, exactly like this, something just a little nicer, maybe a little bit friendlier in some way. I think another aspect of the gym is that people tell me that they feel like they join a family. That's what it is. So I kind of made it look like a part of it is almost like a little bit of a club. You know, people come in here, we chat. It's like a coffee shop type of environment, but they also we work really hard. But what was your question?
And what about your future plans? How do you see the gym developing in the future?
I'm confident we're going to keep growing, and I would love to host more training camps for big name fighters. I want to get this DLX out there. I want them to know that this is a place that you can rent out privately, and it could accommodate large camps, and that's what I do best. But I also other things as well. But that's definitely an aspect that I think is going to grow. And then we'll see. I mean, I don't want to give away my every plan that I have in my head, but I think it's going to entail different things in boxing. You know, we're going to branch out. So just building a brand a little bit, but also keeping this gym. This gym is very sacred to me. It's very special, and it means a lot that we keep it going and we get fighters in here. Again, all types of people. And we separate times, so that's important to know. We separate the times where people come in that are just kind of learning the sport, and then we separate times for sparring. We've got a lot of sparring here. If you take a look at the ring, you'll see. And but we're going to keep growing, and big things are going to happen. And I'm just excited to branch out.
True. Thank you so much for having us here. We wish you the best of luck. And any final words of wisdom for the future gym owners who are planning to open their gym?
Well, I think everyone who enters boxing has to do it from the heart. If you do it just to make money, you're not going to succeed. This is a sport that you have to love. You have to love the people in it and everything about it, or else it won't work. So if you do what you love, the money will come. But you have to do it from the heart at first and foremost.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.